6 months ago in Sri Lanka, amid sovereign debt default and economic chaos, there was a revolution. A new president has since been installed. An International Monetary Fund bailout has been agreed. But half a year on, are the lives of ordinary Sri Lankans actually any better? Is a new day dawning for the country's agricultural sector, on which a quarter of the population depends? Sri Lankan tea pickers like these earn a day rate of around 1,000 rupees, a little less than $3. And though inflation in the country has eased slightly since last year, food prices in Sri Lanka last month were still 65% higher than a year earlier. More than 8 million people, more than a third of Sri Lanka's population, are today estimated to be food insecure by the United Nations.
They are not eating adequate number of meals, as well as their composition of their meals are compromised. They're not having access to animal proteins such as meat, fish or dairy product, and they're resorting to commodities which are not nutritious. When it comes to food security, it's far from over.
The high cost of food is forcing some to make agonising choices between eating, medicine and investment in education.
The velavasi kuda pullegalukku padippu koravu padipalla koravu thane sir padikkiradhu koravu pullegalukku மற்றது விலைவாசி கூட ஸ்கூல் புக்ஸ் எல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் எடுக்கிறதுக்கு கஷ்டமாக இருக்குது ரொம்ப விலை இப்போ 10 ரூபாய்க்கு இருந்த பென்சில் இப்போ 60 ரூபா லேசர் ஒன்று 50 ரூபா அதனால கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டம் இருக்குது அந்த விலைவாசி கூடுனது வந்து கஷ்டம் தான் இனி சமாளிக்க கஷ்டம் கொஞ்சம் பிள்ளைகளுக்கு படிக்கிறதுக்கு கஷ்டமாக இருக்குது.
Sri Lankan farming is still reeling from the disastrous legacy of a short-lived government ban on chemical fertiliser imports in 2021 and now the soaring price of those inputs on global markets in the wake of the invasion of Ukraine.
And it's a tragedy because last year was a good year for tea prices. Had we had that crop, it was ours for the taking.
Inflation is very high in Sri Lanka. Do the tea pickers expect wages to rise to compensate them for that?
Of course, not only pickers, everyone would like a wage increase, but we have to look at the reality of the business. I understand the requirement for higher wages, but that has to be taken in conjunction with the affordability.
The fuel queues that snaked around this country 6 months ago have gone, thanks to a digital rationing system. Tourists are returning, but experts warn that appearances can be deceptive.
I think there are sort of parallel universes really in Sri Lanka. I mean, if you go out sometime in the metropolitan cities, particularly in Colombo, you'll see, one part of society living as though there's, everything is back to normal because now we've got our fuel, you can basically access most imported goods and things seem to be okay. But I think if you go out a little bit and not even outside, there's another segment of society that is really struggling because of the high cost of living, access to, basic services.
A different world from the capital Colombo can be found a 2-hour drive south down the coast. 1 million people in Sri Lanka are estimated to be reliant on fishing for their living. The cost of boat fuel for these fisherfolk in Berawala is still 4 times higher than before the crisis struck last year, making each trip into an economic gamble.
Sometimes onaranga, sometimes illa. Kornjadu or 100 kilo, 150 kilo மீன் பிடிக்கணும் சேப்பா போத்துக்கு. இப்படியே வைத்துக்கொண்டிருந்தா பயன்தான் நீ எப்படி ஊரில் நிச்சு வாலின்னு சொல்லி பயம் இப்படியே வைத்துக்கொண்டிருந்தேன்னா நாங்களும் பிடிச்சி 3 குள்ளைச்சி உணாட்டிச்சு எல்லாரையும் பார்க்கணும் எங்களுக்கு இனி வேற ஒன்றும் தெரியும் இதுதான் தெரியும் எல்லாரும் வெளிநாட்டுக்கு தான் போகிற மிச்சம் பேர்.
Places like this feel like the sharp end of Sri Lanka's economic crisis at the moment. It's clear that in some parts of the country life has got somewhat better in recent months, but in places like this it's really just as painful as it was before the fall of the government.
After a bad storm, there's often an extensive repair job. This is a lesson a still economically broken Sri Lanka knows well.